Hey everybody, Matt here from Matt's Movies, Music and More, welcoming you to this week's movie review episode. This is a film I'm talking about today that, if you're English, you won't have heard of it because I don't recall ever seeing it as a kid. And if you were born in Canada, however, you'd have probably known about this movie and probably liked it a lot. If you look at the late 1970s and early 1980s, in America, one of the biggest TV shows of comedy and entertainment was Saturday Night Live. Now in Canada, they had their own version of Saturday Night Live, which is called SCTV. Now that particular show launched the careers of many people involved, including John Candy, Eugene Levy, Catherine O'Hara, Joe Flowery, and Rick Moranis and Dave Thomas, to name a few. Now, the reason I mention those two last is because I'm talking about a movie which is based on two characters from SCTV called Bob and Doug McKenzie, who are Canadian unemployed guys who basically they talk to camera and they drink beer and they're like, "Hey, what's all going on about, eh?" And they talk in that sort of style. And this movie is called Strange Brew: The Adventures of Bob and Doug McKenzie, directed by and starring Rick Moranis and Dave Thomas, and also starring Max von Sydow. Now, the movie is very unusual because it starts off as if you're watching a movie being made, which is it has the MGM logo with the lion, and it happens to pan to the side of the bit where the lion sticks his head out of, and then you see behind it's actually a real lion. And Bob and Doug McKenzie actually go out there like, "Hey, he's a friendly lion," and stuff, and they're sort of playing with his tail, and they're like, "Oh, I wouldn't do that, eh?" And I mean, they're doing the classic "eh" sort of talk with Canadian language, and they're wanting to drink and stuff like that. And as the movie is going on, you're kind of thinking, this is boring because they're just talking to camera and stuff like that, and all of a sudden it cuts to a cinema where this is the movie that's being shown, and the people in the crowd are going, "What the hell rubbish is this? This is nothing like the album." And you know, because they'd released an album of their comedy skits in the 80s as well, and they're like, "This movie sucks," and all that. And then basically by the time that happens, people are starting throwing popcorn at the screen, and they're like, "Hey, there, those two guys, we want our money back." And as that's going on, they eventually get away and get into their vans to drive home, and then the opening credits actually starts for the movie. Now, it's an unusual one because they go to their parents' home because they haven't got jobs and they're really stupid, and they're home and they're like, you know, let's get some beer. And then because they haven't got a lot of money, they come up with ideas like, oh, let's blackmail the local beer store to get some Eisenhower beer. And they say, what we're going to do is we're going to put a live mouse in the beer bottle. And they're like, "Hey, I got this beer," and all of a sudden there was a live mouse in it, eh? And they're doing that, and they get told, well, if you want to complain, go up to the Eisenhower Brewery. And so they decide, okay, we're actually going to go and do that. So they drive up to the Eisenhower Brewery, which is a really strange place. The way it's done, it's got matte paintings, but you wouldn't guess that. But it looks like one of these creepy giant castle type houses. And in there, you have this guy called Brewmaster Smith, who's played by Max von Sydow, and he is the bad guy in this movie because he's perfecting a secret plan to take over the world by putting mind control drugs in Eisenhower beer. And what's happened is the owner of Eisenhower beer, John Eisenhower, he's recently died under strange circumstances, and his daughter Pam shows up trying to take over full control of the brewery. But whilst it's going on, her uncle Claude, who's played by Paul Dooley, who you would have known from 16 Candles, he is actually in cahoots with Brewmaster Smith. And so basically what happens is they're trying to sort of get the control from Pam and sort of saying, well, look, take the money and go. And she's like, well, no, I think I'm going to stick around and I'm going to oversee the business. So really putting a spanner into the works for Brewmaster Smith. And whilst Bob and Doug happen to go up to the brewery, they meet Pam, they meet Brewmaster Smith and stuff like that. And they find out that whilst they're there, one of the employees at the brewery is a one-time hockey great called John LaRose. And he'd suffered a career-ending nervous breakdown, and now he's fallen under Smith's control. So basically what happens is there's this weird bit in the movie which is very strange, which is for some random reason, whilst they're under the mind control, they all get summoned into like some sort of area where they go and play hockey, and someone playing a keyboard doing all these weird sort of sounds, and all of a sudden it's making them all play hockey, and then like, you know, take charge, and you know, all this sort of thing. And whilst it's going on, obviously Brewmaster Smith is trying to come up with ideas to get rid of Pam and also get rid of the McKenzie brothers. I don't really want to spoil too much of the movie because, again, it's one of those ones that you really need to see for yourself if you fancy checking out these actors in these roles. It's one of those movies that, being English, I've never seen SCTV, and I know of its popularity because of all the famous people that have come away from that show. But I thought I'd check out Strange Brew. I'm glad I did. I mean, I only know Dave Thomas from being in the movie Rat Race, which I thought he was really funny in. But of the two brothers, he's more of the smart leader type. Whereas Rick Moranis, who I love anyway, I mean, I loved him from Ghostbusters and Little Shop Horrors and Honey, I Shrunk the Kids and all that. And yeah, it's an unusual movie because, like I say, it's very much of its time. Is it something that you'd want to check out? Maybe, if you like the people involved, to be honest. I mean, it's nothing special. I was contemplating actually buying it because I actually thought it was okay. But it's not something that I can see myself watching over and over, so it may be something that may just sit on the back burner for the time being. But I like the film. I thought the film was actually quite funny in places. It's not a laugh out loud comedy like most movies, but it does have some weird moments, and I think Max von Sydow is brilliant as the baddie. I think Brewmaster Smith is really, really sinister. But yeah, I thought this was a good movie. I think it's definitely worth checking out if you get a chance. So yeah, that's my review on Strange Brew, I guess. So what did you think of the movie? If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. There's lots more video content on here. We've got loads of things coming up over the next year or so, including music reviews, and we've got films on the What Did You Think, which is a series I do with a special guest of mine, which talk about movies. And we have a series that my friend Andrew does called At the Movies with Andrew, which he talks about the latest movies. So if you're into the latest movies, definitely check that out. I'm more of an old-fashioned type. I like to do old movies. So anyway, thank you very much, everybody, and we'll catch you on the very next video soon. All the very best.